think the greatest lesson in every offseason is the fact that like I just have to continue to keep proving myself and my worth. And it's like, it pushes me. It lights that fire that maybe I necessarily wouldn't have if I was with, under contract with the team every single year.
The goal of the Best You podcast is to allow you to feel confident about what you need to do, why you need to do it, and how to do it in order to get closer and closer to your best you. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Carrier's Best You podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by the one and only Matt Overton. Matt, I just want to start off by saying thanks so much for spending the time with me, man.
You bet, man. Excited to be here, and it's been long overdue.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Like you said, long overdue in the sense that I think I had asked you to talk about being on the podcast before the season started, and that's when you got picked up by the Chargers, and then it was really fun watching you and following you throughout the season and the awesome season that you guys had. And so basically the way I want to start is just asking you what are your maybe biggest lessons or biggest takeaways from this past season that you spent with the Chargers?
Oh man, I think for me it's just the preparation that it takes, the patience, and just believing that God has a great plan for you, man. Like in the midst of uncertainty, you get tested in those moments because, and I think we always, we strive for certain goals and aspirations, and the days are long, the months are long, sometimes the years are long, especially when you're not seeing outcomes that you want or getting certain places. And I've learned in my career that the phone call for an opportunity can come at any moment. So, the mindset of like staying ready and just always preparing has always been kind of that focus for me. And with it being like my fourth or fifth year straight being a free agent after the season, like I've always kind of carried that mentality with me as I go. And going into last year, I knew that the phone call would come. I was pretty certain about that. I just didn't know when. And so, it came at the least expected time. It was like a Sunday afternoon in like mid-August, and got the call and packed some bags and was out in LA for the whole year. So just one of those things that I've learned over time that you just got to be patient in the process. And there's so many great lessons learned in the uncertainty and just holding yourself like kind of accountable every single day, like those daily disciplines. And at the end of the day, I've always learned that God will always exceed your expectation, man. So that's definitely what I take away from last year.
That's awesome. Well, I love that. I kind of want to talk to you about when you did first get picked up by the Los Angeles Chargers this past year, because it was kind of, right at the beginning of the season almost. And so you're here in Nashville and you had just gotten your new house and you got a new baby girl around. And so what was that like to go out to the Chargers? I know you weren't necessarily, I feel like, too concerned about which team you were going to get picked up by. You wanted to play. But what was it still like kind of mentally and emotionally and psychologically to be picked up by a team that's all the way out, out west when your family's kind of, back east in Nashville?
Yeah, so, the year before in 2020, I played for the Titans. So it was a luxury of playing at home, right? And it felt awesome, because, of course, you don't have to uproot the family. And, yeah, we had a little transition because at the time my wife and I were moving down here full-time from Indianapolis, so a little 4 hours south. But she was also pregnant. So it was such a blessing to be home with her and be able to take care of her and help her in those moments when she needed me. And then fast forward a year, I knew I wasn't going to play here in Nashville. So, obviously it's somewhere else. And, we kind of, when we think about where we'd like to go, it'd be nice to stay semi-close where it's either, a quick flight or a drive away. And, that wasn't the case, with LA, but the blessing of it was, it took me closer to home where I'm from. And so that was my first time being back on the West Coast in a long time since like college. And so it gave me the opportunity to be close to my parents and my grandparents, and have some familiarity with my surroundings out there. And then really, when my wife and daughter came out for the year, I mean, the community that we had with teammates and their wives and their kids was incredible. So I know it was a little nerve-wracking for my wife to make that transition from here and bring at the time, like our 6-month-old daughter or 5-month-old daughter with us and live in a new place fairly quickly without really having an ease into the transition. I mean, there's, those moments are a little bit, scary for her. And, but man, we immediately fell in love with, living in Orange County and Huntington Beach. And then, like I said, the community we had there was incredible. So we couldn't have asked for a better place to be.
That's awesome. So, and then like you said, you're kind of heading into this season again, another year in free agency. You have that hat on your head, your brand, stay ready. And I love that because I think one of the things that I've said a few times to people, I think a lot of times we wait to prepare for an opportunity when we see the opportunity in front of us, when in reality, you have to always be preparing for the opportunity that's invisible, that you don't yet know that's in front of you, so that when it does present itself, you are ready for it. So talk a little bit about why stay ready is such an important mindset for you and why this kind of like one of your brands now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I just look back early in my career where, I never questioned my work ethic. I think I've always had a really good drive as far as being self-motivated and always working. But when so long story short, it took me 6 years after college to make my first NFL team. So in the midst of those 6 years, I went to all over the place, different leagues, been cut by a bunch of NFL teams. And so it's just like I was like a tumbleweed, just going wherever I could, wherever the wind was blowing me. And I was working hard. I mean, I was, and a lot of people do. I mean, it's not that I'm saying that I work harder than anybody else, but I just was like super, super driven. But then when I made it to the league, I quickly found out like it's hard to make it, but it's even harder to like stick around, And I was with the Colts for 5 years, and I look back at those years in the offseason in particular, how I used that time. And I don't necessarily think I used that time wisely. I would travel, go see family, I was a young single guy, just doing whatever I wanted to and having probably a little bit too much fun. And I kind of drifted away from my craft. And it wasn't until, I got released suddenly in early 2017 in the offseason. It just got sideswiped and blindsided by getting cut. And it was kind of like, oh man, like, obviously my performance wasn't up to the standard as what the coach and GM wanted it to be at. And so I quickly just was like, man, I have to stay ready because I know that phone call could come at any moment. And the last thing that I ever wanted, I was discouraged at the time, but I was, I just knew that I didn't want to let that discouragement just keep me on the couch for one day turn into a week and a week turn into a month because I'm upset about the situation and the circumstance that just happened. So I was like, the last thing I'll ever want is to get that call. And I know I'd been sitting around for, a couple of weeks not doing anything. So I just quickly just kind of reshifted my perspective, my gears, my focus, and was just staying ready. And since then, like, I think the blessing, it would be so great to sign like a multi-year deal with a team where I know that I'm going to be there for more than a year. But I think the greatest lesson in every offseason is the fact that like, I just have to continue to keep proving myself and my worth. And it just like, it pushes me. It lights that fire that maybe I necessarily wouldn't have if I was with, under contract with the team every single year. So I think I kind of compare and contrast my younger, early stages of my career to now. And I think I've fallen more in love with the process of preparation now than I did before, and taking it more seriously. And that's where like, just the community that we have here in Nashville is incredible, right? Like with Justin and you guys at the gym where, I mean, everyone's super driven, super ambitious, willing to help each other. And I just love it, man. There's something about the off season for me that I just feel like is just like, it's like a new experiment every year. Like, what am I going to really focus on this year? Where am I going to grow? Where do I need to grow? And it's pretty cool to see how, our lives cross too, as far as like the influence and the help and it's been great. So, and obviously, being married and having a daughter and being a dad and being a husband now, it's like those priorities are in front of a lot of other things that maybe I would have had, kind of out of order early on in my career. But, having the stability at home with a family and my wife and my daughter, it helps me kind of stay on track too. So, I love I love being a free agent because, it's like, all right, you just gotta work even harder now. Right. So, and I'll be 37 this year. So it's like, I don't ever want them to use my age, as a determining factor why, not to get signed. So I'm always trying to stay ahead of these young guys who are creeping into the league too. So it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really liked how you said that you have fallen in love with the off season and the preparation, because I think this is so important for everybody to have that mindset, because, you're not when it's off season, the result that you're looking for, the result that you're aiming for, the goal that you're aiming for isn't necessarily the next week's win, isn't, winning on Sunday. The result that you're looking for is just showing up and working out and getting better there. And so one of the things that I tell everybody who I coach in my fitness program is that working towards a fitness goal isn't just about achieving a result. It's about becoming the type of person who follows through with the promises that you make to yourself. It's about being okay with the result of like showing up and working your ass off and then letting the results speak for themselves. And I feel like that's the mindset that you've taken on with regards to loving the off season and just falling in love with the process.
Absolutely. And I think about your, the goals that you had last year with the running the mile, right? Like people don't realize, you're trying to run a sub 4-minute mile, but people don't realize how many days and how many months, it takes to prepare for that 4 minutes. Right. And it's like a sprinter, they train, we talk about the Olympics because the Winter Olympics going on right now, but it's, I know obviously it's Winter Olympics and there's no sprinting, but you take a sprinter who's only doing 100 meters and whatever it is, the 8 seconds it takes them to run that race, that it takes 4 years to prepare for that moment. Right. And so I feel like if you can't fall in love with that process, you're never going to be a better version of you, and it's not even just about like me personally. I love being around and seeing other people strive for it. And I love being in a position where I can serve and be a mentor to younger guys and share my story with these young guys, because I know what it's like being a rookie. I know what it's like to have the freedoms where, all right, now I have the next 4 months off. Like, dang, all right, I'm going to go party. I got a little money in my pocket now. I can go do this, that, and the other. And people are pulling you in all different directions. And man, like that distraction can really take you away from really what your job is. And your job is to prepare and to stay sharp on your craft. And so there's always a healthy balance where it's good to get away from what you're doing, like, taking the rest and the recovery and all that kind of stuff. And I like to do that. But honestly, just being in the gym and just moving in general, whether it's just going for a walk with my wife or daughter, like, that's my mental recovery. Like it's so healthy for me just to move. Some people love to just sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. I'm good for maybe 30 minutes and that's it. Yeah. I got to move on to the next thing. So, there's a good balance and like I just enjoy, I enjoy like shooting for these like short-term goals throughout the off season, because man, it's really cool to see how far you can really go and push yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. So I kind of want to give everybody a little bit more detail in regards to like your story and your timeline a little bit. So you started off by just going to a junior college, Diablo Valley College, and then you transferred to Western Washington. And then basically after that, if I understood correctly, you got picked up, I guess, as an undrafted free agent in 2007 by the Seahawks, and then went from like UFL, a little bit Arena League, Seahawks again, UFL again, and kind of back and forth. And finally you got picked up by the Colts again in 2012, where you spent 5 years. But basically there's a lot of, like you said, uncertainty and ups and downs within that. And so I kind of want you to take a few seconds to talk to somebody right now who is experiencing maybe a lot of uncertainty in their life. Maybe they're in a job that they don't like and they want to move to a different job, or they're in a relationship and they're not really sure where it's going to go, but they're just experiencing uncertainty right now and it's causing them a lot of stress and anxiety. What can somebody do, or what mindset shift can they take to not necessarily get rid of the uncertainty, but get more comfortable within it?
Yeah, I think early on when I was like chasing the dream, I was so worried about the outcome and not just taking it day by day. It's so easy and it's cliche to say, just take it one day at a time, live in the present, live in the moment. And it's easier said than done. And so, but it's so true. It really is. Like, I think we all like to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We like to have that direction. But man, there's blessings in like the uncertainty and in the darkness, because it reveals a lot about your character. Because some people either just, keep going or they give up, completely just give up. And a little message that I was thinking about today was like opportunity, and what does opportunity look like? And sometimes we have to take those jobs or the job titles or positions that we necessarily don't feel like we want because of ego and pride. Sometimes taking a step back or taking 2 steps back is the greatest thing you'll ever do for your profession or for you personally. And I just think of times where like my goal was always the NFL, but the opportunities weren't there. So there's these other leagues. You mentioned the UFL, the Arena League. Like there's other leagues that were presenting opportunities. And yeah, I wanted to play, but I was like, gosh dang, like I know I deserve to be here. But I ended up taking those opportunities, and they turned out to be like stepping stones for me. Even though at the time my pride was telling me, "Hey, no, you're too good for that." Like, and I think of job opportunities that I've taken where I think the perfect example would be like you go to a 4-year college, you graduate with a master's degree, and you feel like you deserve this certain position right off the bat. Well, sometimes you got to go sweep the floors a little bit before you move your way up the ladder. And so, and then when you look back, you always talk about it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You look back on the times where like, yeah, you were sweeping those floors, or yeah, like you were working that graveyard shift. And those are some of the best moments you'll ever experience, because first of all, you know what it's like to be in those moments, in those situations, because they're not the greatest. You know how to survive, but you also meet some of the greatest people. And so on these smaller leagues, I went from the Seahawks to the Arena 2 League, and I'm talking like 2 different worlds. You're going from the elite to like, I don't want to disrespect anybody in the Arena 2 League because I was there, but it's like bottom of the barrel, right? You feel that way because you know what it's like at the top. You're kind of at the bottom now. You're driving to the game in like a school bus. You're getting like food stamps for like pizza at Pizza Hut. You're living in a hotel. Like, so it's 2 different worlds, but it's humbling, right? And but when I look back on that time, like, dude, that was the coolest like thing ever. Like, I met some of the coolest people, and those people served as like mentors to me. And then it's crazy how 10 years down the road, you cross paths with certain individuals that was in that moment with you. Like, and everyone's trying to get to the top, right? Whatever the top looks like. And it's just, man, when you take advantage of those opportunities where you're kind of in the moment where you don't want to be in, or the circumstance you don't want to be in, or, or the environment, like, man, just use those as stepping stones. Don't let yourself think you're too good or too better to be in those moments. Man, just embrace it, man. Embrace it and find the good in it all, because there's, I really do feel like those are appointments that God sets you up on that just elevates you and takes you to where you need to go. And there's always something to be learned in those seasons,
Yeah, no, I think you said it really well with regards to, if you're taking a step back or you're not necessarily in the place that you think you deserve, that you should be, you can't let that circumstance or that situation dictate your attitude that you bring to it, right? Like there's going to be certain times where you're just in circumstances that aren't ideal, but you still have to be disciplined. You still have to show up. You still have to work hard. And so if you're in that place of uncertainty right now, and you're in a place where you feel like you deserve to be at a higher level, don't let that fact that you are unhappy don't bring that attitude to that space. Don't let the circumstance determine your attitude. You determine your attitude. That's one of the things that I learned by my football coach and baseball coach growing up in high school. Is like the only things you can control are your attitude and your efforts. Always bring that to the table, regardless of what presents itself.
No doubt. And sometimes, honestly, like people are watching what you do and how you respond in those moments. So it's not that people like, if it's your boss and they're promoting you to a certain division or maybe you have to take a pay cut for whatever reason. Like people are watching to see how you respond, and you can respond negatively, and that's just a clear sign that they may not want you a part of whatever is going on. And then it just kind of takes you back from the moment too. Like people don't want to be around you. People don't want to work with you. And in those moments, and we've all been there. I mean, there's times where I've had a piss poor attitude, and I've huffed and puffed and pouted about it. And threw myself a little pity party. But at the end of the day, like nobody cares, no one's going to feel sorry for you. You know, and again, when you look back on your journey, you know, those are the times where you're like, I get it now. Like, I know why I had to do that, because I learned something. Maybe it's just simply learning humility, like what it feels like to just humble yourself a little bit, put your pride aside, and yeah, like you said, just let that moment serve you for the better.
Yeah, I think what you said with regards to people are going to watch how you take action in that negative situation or that less than ideal circumstance, and I think that's so true. One of the things that I talk about is I think we need to try to work to act as the best version of ourselves as frequently as possible, because we never know who's watching, and we never know how that person can either help us or, you know, stop us from getting an opportunity or help us get an opportunity at some point down the road. So, and one of the things that you said earlier, which I really loved, was uncertainty reveals a lot about your character, and a lot of people will see that. One of the things I want to get into, though, Matt, is you're currently, I feel like, undertaking your diet's changing a little bit this off season compared to what it has been in the past. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that and talk about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and kind of how it has you, I guess, feeling at the moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you can say I've always had a general interest in health and fitness and just natural, where I just being an athlete. You know, and for me, you know, it's just, I try to work on something or focus on something fairly new every off season. And I really wanted to work on my nutrition this off season. And it was easy for me. Like, I've done all the fads, you know, all the hip new. I've done paleo, I've done keto, I've done pretty much everything. So, you know, I wanted to do something that was a little bit more realistic for myself. You know, I've done the carnivore ish, where, you know, maybe it's like 80% carnivore. You know, but my wife started doing this like 30-day challenge, because she's, you know, been suffering from some postpartum stresses and struggles, and you know, so she started like this like little 30-day cleanse, and she was doing some cool things like eliminating coffee and getting rid of all the energy drinks that she was sipping on throughout the day. And so she's doing that. And that kind of like sparked my curiosity a little bit. It's like, well, how can I jump on board, but also support her in those ways too? And I'm a big coffee drinker. So one of the big things that I wanted to focus on this off season, just to see kind of how my body responded, was just eliminating that morning 2 to 3 cups of coffee and the quick caffeine rush. Right. And so this whole month of February, I haven't had any coffee. I've had decaf a couple times, but no caffeine first thing in the morning. I've kind of eased my way into like later in the afternoon to get a little caffeine, or just use a little bit of pre-workout before I work out to get a little caffeine. But so I've been doing that, and I've been doing intermittent fasting, and then also cold water exposure. So I enjoy the intermittent fasting. I try to hit that 16-hour mark daily, and then been training. I've been training fasted as well. So going from
how do you feel like that's been impacting your workouts, if at all?
You know, I think the natural energy that I've been getting, just from not even having that crash from my caffeine. Because really, when I look back, it was not just 2 to 3 cups of coffee in the morning at 6 a.m., but it was, you know, the added sugars I was putting in there, artificial flavoring. That was, you know, it was just the junk that I was putting in there. And I noticed once I got rid of, I got rid of the creamer first, and I was just doing black coffee because I was intermittent fasting. And so I quickly, just by going black coffee, I already eliminated 2 cups. See, coffee doesn't taste that great to where I'm just going to sit there and enjoy it and chug it. So just by going black, I eliminated about 2 cups. And now I could just sip it gradually, and it sustains me for, you know, the 30 minutes or whatever I'm doing when I'm reading and writing. And then when I got rid of coffee and then had a little sip, maybe like 5 days after having no coffee, like I just maybe enjoyed it just a little bit. Like, oh, you know, now the black coffee tastes a little better than what it used to be. And I realized that my body just craved the sweetener. It wasn't the coffee or the caffeine. It was just that sugar that was in the sweeteners that I was putting in there. Like my body just the cinnamon toast crunch creamer is what I'd use, man. And like my body was just like craving that junk. So I don't use that anymore, which is great because now I'm drinking tea, non-caffeinated tea, and then, little like 50 milligram caffeine, like energy fizzes. So little doses. And then training fasted, man, I feel pretty good. There were times where, I'd carbo load before a big heavy lift leg day. I'd have my caffeine, and I think reflecting back, because I didn't know in the moment, but like I was feeling those fatigues and those crashes really quick, especially if I'm working out. Like if I'm up at 6 a.m. and I'm not training till like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., I feel like I was going into the gym like lethargic and a little tired. Because I was eating a heavy breakfast, I had all the caffeine, I was pumped up, and then I just kind of hit that crash. So going into a training, like fasted, kind of on my 14th hour fasted, I was feeling really, really good. And I was actually surprised at how good I felt. And I felt like I didn't lose really any strength. And it's early in the off season, so we're not doing really, really heavy loads, but for the most part.
How long have you been doing this now? Like training fasted, I guess. Was it, let's see, a month?
Almost a month now. And really the goal in mind. So just to answer, more in depth, the goal in mind is I'm really trying to work on body composition too. So it's not just, nutritionally, but I'm really working on, body comp. So my goal for this off season, when I return to a team, is like, I want to be below 50% body fat, still have the lean muscle mass up, all that kind of stuff. So there's like things outside of the nutrition that I'm trying to benefit too. And I ended the season at weighing 250. Now I weighed in at 238 today. So within a month's time, I've lost about 10 to 12 pounds. But I feel like I'm still strong. And it's been great. It's not every day. I haven't had the coffee, which is good. I try to hit the intermittent fasting. It's hard. So my last meal is usually around 6 p.m. And then, sometimes we're up at 5 a.m. with our daughter. And man, waiting from 5 a.m. to about 11, dude, it's hard because that 5 hours is that struggle, whereas opposed if I'm waking up at like 7 or 8 a.m., that's a little bit more easier to attain.
What do you feel like helps get you through those 5 hours or that duration in the morning when you're not able to eat? We'll be back to the interview in just a second. But first, I wanted to share a quick testimonial from a past participant of the 10-week transformation program. I started running the 10WT in the beginning of 2020 and have had over 150 people and counting go through it, and they've seen amazing results both inside and out. If you're inspired to join after listening to the testimonial, then go to nickcarrier.com to learn more. We'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but first, here's what they had to say.
Hey, my name is Drew. That's for why I joined Nick's program. I was in a bit of a kind of just routine from a previous workout perspective, and just was looking to kind of jumpstart and find something new that was going to introduce me to some new ways of working out that were both more aggressive and more scheduled. Getting up early in the morning, that's been really kind of a game changer for me, and kind of starting the day off. Obviously with Nick's 2 workouts that he does as a group, and I've applied those across all of the workouts that he's built for us through the program, and I think it's just a great way to start the day. Getting here, working hard, and then knowing that you've accomplished that to start the day has been really beneficial to me, both from a physical perspective, but from a mental perspective as well. My favorite thing about the program has just been the level of planning and kind of strategic thinking around your goals and how to get there, and then understanding that planning and all that is one thing, but the application of those tactics, and Nick really helps you to think about what are the small things in my day that are going to help me get to where I need to go. You should join Nick's 10-week program.
Well, you just got to find yourself be busy. So, sitting around on the couch for 5 hours is hard because especially when my wife, she's eating breakfast and I'm like, dang, I want to crush that or something, like she's baking something in the kitchen. That's kind of when I get the urge. But if I could wake up And it's not easy because we have our daughter and whatnot, but I felt like, being busy in the moment, whether it's reading a book, podcasting, or just going out for like a light walk around the block, like that helps, like, get your mind off of, because at the end of the day, it's all mental. My first day fasting, I think I did 20 hours. And initially I was like, dude, that's gonna be so hard because people talk about 24-hour fasting, 48-hour fasting. I'm like, dang, that's really hard. And I did it while we were traveling back from LA. And I'm like, oh, this is more mental than anything. And as long as you stay busy and you kind of have a routine, I think those hours and those marks are super attainable. Not to say that that's healthy by any means to do it all the time, but I found myself when I sit around and I'm idle, that those are when the hunger craves kick in.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. I don't follow intermittent fasting super closely just because of my schedule, but on days that I can follow it, I usually try to do so for at least 12, if not the 14 to 16. And usually for me, it's around that 12-hour, 13-hour mark when I start to get hungry. And then it just takes like the 30 minutes or the hour after that to get over that hump. And then really I'm fine. But like you said, if I'm busy, then not thinking about it, but if I'm just sitting there in my house and my fridge is right over there, I'm like, God, I'm so much hungrier. So like you said, it is definitely so mental. One of the things I wanted to make sure I asked you, so like you said, you've been on the Colts, the Seahawks for that little bit of time, and then the Jaguars, the Titans, the Chargers. Is there a teammate that you had that you feel like is the best leader of anyone that you've been around? And if so, what do you think has made that person the best leader? Or it could be coach.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's been a handful of guys that I've come across that have been incredible leaders, and it's usually, most of the time, it's never like the star player. But I'll go back to, the Colts time. Adam Vinatieri was an incredible leader, somebody that I still look up to today. He led in so many different ways where, he played at an elite level for a long time, obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame here soon. But, I got to learn from his work ethic, just kind of his daily routines, how he carried himself on and off the field. So that's somebody that, pops into mind quickly with that. And then like recently on the Chargers, there's a guy named Drew Tranquil. He's one of our linebackers, but man, the guy is just the way he carries himself, and, he's always got his notebook in the meeting room. He's always, noting stuff down. He just always seems to be doing the right things, all the little things right. And, he's like probably 10 years younger than I am, but I look up to him, And so there's guys that usually, for the most part, they're the big star guys on the team aren't necessarily like the best leaders. And they lead in different ways. Everyone's got their different traits, and qualities and whatnot. And it's not always the vocal leaders that are the ones that come to mind, but it's just a guy. I mean, I just appreciate the guys that come in and day out that are accountable and reliable and just show up and do the little things right. Because at the end of the day, that's how successful people become successful, is doing the little things. It's not the big tasks, that we always think about. So it's the little disciplines every single day that pay over. It's just, it's just those daily deposits that get you far, man. So it's those guys that I think about that really inspire me and as being big leaders, really good leaders in the locker room.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things I've recently thought a lot about is I feel like our character as a person is determined more by doing things that we don't have to do rather than doing things that we do have to do. And, I feel like those are the things that stand out to other people. It's the small things that you don't really have to do, but it's kind of going that extra mile. It's making sure you're taking notes. It's, picking up after maybe somebody else in the locker room or whatever it is. It's those small things that stand out to other people that are a true testament of your character, and therefore kind of a true testament of being a great leader.
Sure.
But yeah, man, well, I want to make sure get out of here on time. So I really appreciate you joining today. I just want to acknowledge you before I ask the last question for being able to stay ready season after season. Like you said, in kind of 2017, you almost got this kick in the nuts, if you will, or I'm trying to think of the other, how's I wanted to phrase that rather than kicking the nuts, but
I mean, it was a reality check.
Yeah, you got a reality check. And, you know, but then ever since then, you've been on your toes and you have stayed ready and you've really learned from that situation, because I think a lot of people could have gone through that similar situation where they did get blindsided, and then they could have sat on their laurels and got on the couch and sat around for a couple months being like, you know what, like maybe my time is just up. Maybe I'm just not as good. And maybe it's time for me to retire, because you did have a good handful of years there with the Colts, but you didn't do that, right? You got back up and you took ownership and responsibility over staying ready, because you never knew when that phone call was going to come. And you've done such a great job of doing that. And I know it's inspired so many, and it's inspired me. So I just wanted to appreciate you for that. Yeah, dude. Well, also, I know people are going to want to go learn more about you. So make sure that you go follow him on Instagram first at Matt Overton _LS, which is obviously stands for long snapper. And then you can go check out his website at mattovertonbrand.com, where he has some great stay ready gear and some girl dad gear as well. But last question here, Matt, is I think that getting closer to the best version of yourself is a constant journey and a unique journey. I don't think we're ever at that best version of ourselves. And I also think that the way that I'm going to get closer to the best version of myself is a little bit different than the way that you're going to get closer to the best version of yourself. So for you personally, if there are 3 things that you can currently do, or 3 things that you can currently work on to get closer to that best version of Matt Overton that you could possibly be, then what are those 3 things that you can currently do or currently work on?
Yeah, I think first that comes to mind is serving better, serving others, serving my family better. That now that I'm a husband, now that I'm a father, like, man, just, I used to have the priorities, faith, family, and football used to be in the order of football was first, then it was either family or faith, but it was all out of order. It was never faith, family, football. And if I can keep my priorities straight and be able to serve my family well, that's a mission in itself, because that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to serve, lead my family well, and serve others well. I mean, I think the greatest thing we could do in this lifetime is help others and serve and, just be there for people when they need it. I think a long time, or all of us, man, we just get self-consumed a lot and thinking about like, how can I get here? How can I get better? Who can help me? And sometimes it's just simply like, hey, who can I help? How can I help them? And a guy, David Thornton, who was in the Colts, he was one of our coaches and player development guy. His task every single day was to help people. And he would always come up to us, hey, how can I help? Who can I help? How can I help them? And it's just kind of having that daily, the mindset of like, hey, let's go out and serve. And whether it's just like helping somebody by simply opening the door, or, really coaching somebody, or just answering questions. So, but for me personally, like leading my wife and my family and my daughter and leading our household is definitely helping me to be the best version of me. Again, I think slowing down and a little bit of humility too, because again, for my profession is definitely a little self-centered and selfish in the regard of, I always have to work out. I always have to prepare. I always have to keep that at the forefront because it's part of my job, but there's a balance, I don't want to get too consumed with, necessarily worrying about my next workout or worrying when the next time I'm going to get in the gym, because it is important for me to spend quality time here at home and being able to use my energy in other places. So slowing down a little bit is not in my DNA, because I'm like, I can't sit still. So like, I'm just like always all over the place.
Not slowing down, just channeling your energy in different ways.
Exactly. Yeah. Having a good, healthy balance. And then the third thing, man, I just think it's just like, maybe just being authentic and real. Like, again, it's just one of those things. I think we live in a day and age now too, especially with social media, where, a lot of people hide behind a mask and try to be somebody that they're not, for the fame or for the likes or for the content, or, it's a lot of people are afraid to be themselves. And so if I could just stay who I am, not try to be somebody that I'm not, I'm not, when it comes to like being an athlete, like I'm, not comparing myself to others, like just being myself, because I think when we play the comparison games, it takes us away from being the best person that we could be, because, we can't be somebody else. We weren't created to be. So, those three things probably help me come into my mind when it talks about, being my best version. And those would be good things to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are three great things, Matt. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Y'all make sure you share this episode with a friend or family member, because I know they'll get a lot from it as well. And make sure that you and your whoever you share it with starts to embrace that stay ready mentality, because it will inevitably help you get closer to the best version of yourself as well. But that's all we got today, Matt. Really appreciate it, man.
Nick, man. Thanks, bro. I appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.
See you, man.